All right, so you sent over quite a stack of headlines this time from India for March 19th, 2025. And wow, there's a lot here.
Yeah, there really is a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got everything from international relations, what's happening with the U.S. on the global stage, to stuff happening right here at home, some kind of alarming local news, to some big moves in the business world.
Yeah, and I was thinking about, what we do here in our deep dives. And it just occurred to me that we kind of have a mission here
Oh, yeah. What's that?
to like go through this whole mountain of information and pick out what's really important,
Yeah.
the things that are most interesting, and to try to paint a clear picture of what's going on without, making it too overwhelming with all these different headlines.
Definitely a worthy mission. I think this collection of headlines is really a fascinating snapshot of where India is right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm ready to jump in if you are.
Yeah, yeah, let's do it. So let's start with the international scene. I was really struck by Tulsi Gabbard's remarks at that Resina dialogue. I mean, she's overseeing U.S. intelligence now, so her perspective is pretty significant.
Yeah, no kidding. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was this idea of realism and pragmatism that she talked about, like in
Uh,
terms of how President Trump is approaching foreign policy.
okay, so what does that mean, realism and pragmatism?
Well, it seems to be about putting a real emphasis on things like cultural ties and economic relationships,
Right.
as a way to build global peace and security. And also this idea that the U.S. needs to engage with everyone.
Really?
Everyone.
Yeah, even adversaries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty big shift from how things have been done in the past and could mean the U.S. taking a less interventionist approach,
Hmm.
focusing more on diplomacy and finding common ground.
That's really interesting, especially because President Trump's about to have those discussions with Putin about the whole Ukraine situation.
Right, exactly.
No.
Makes you wonder how that's all going to play out.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So Gabbard also had a lot to say about India specifically. Seems like she's pretty positive about how things are going between our two countries.
Yeah, absolutely. She was really talking up the growing partnership between the U.S. and India and
Right.
how crucial India is becoming in the Indo-Pacific, as a counterbalance to China.
Right.
It's not just about two countries being friendly. It's about, a shared understanding of what's happening in the region and working together to keep things stable.
And it's a long game, right? It's not just about who's in charge right now.
Exactly. A long-term strategy.
And beyond just giving speeches, Gabbard also met with Prime Minister Modi and Defense Minister Singh. It seems like strengthening defense collaboration and intelligence sharing were high on the agenda,
Mm-hmm.
which makes sense considering Modi's recent U.S. visit where they were talking a lot about tariffs and defense ties.
Right.
It's interesting to think about Gabbard's background. I mean, she was a member of Congress.
Oh.
She really understands the political landscape,
Yeah.
and now he's in charge of U.S. intelligence.
It's quite a shift.
It is.
And it could mean some really strong ties between our countries in sensitive areas like defense and security.
Yeah, it's definitely something to watch.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on from those high-level talks to something a little closer to home.
What's that?
That raid on the Momo factory in Mohali, Punjab. I mean,
Yeah.
some pretty disturbing stuff came out of that.
It's really shocking the kind of conditions they found in that factory. I mean, you've got
Huh.
dirty water, spoiled vegetables, oil being reused. It's like basic food safety was totally ignored.
And then there's the nearly 60 kilos of frozen chicken that
Uh,
they had to destroy because it
yeah.
had gone bad. It's just
Yeah.
really concerning.
You have to wonder how a place like that can operate with such a blatant disregard for, public health regulations
Yeah.
and people's well-being.
It gets worse, though. They found a severed pug head in the refrigerator. I mean, it's
Wow.
just gruesome.
That's awful.
They think it might have been for personal consumption by some of the Nepali workers there.
Yeah.
But even so, to have animal remains in a place where they're making food for the public, it's just not okay.
That is really disturbing. And it makes you question everything about their hygiene and safety protocols. I
Right.
mean, a severed head
Yeah.
in a food processing facility, it's
Yeah.
just a terrible image.
And it gets me thinking, like, this factory was running for 2 years. They were making over a quintal of momos and spring rolls every day
Oh, wow.
and distributing them all over Chandigarh, Panchkula, Kalka.
Right.
I mean, who knows how many people might have been exposed to something unsafe.
That's a scary thought. It's just crazy that it went on for so long.
Yeah, and it seems like this raid was part of a bigger crackdown on these sorts of places because of those viral videos that were going around showing unsanitary conditions. So hopefully that's a sign that the authorities are taking this seriously.
I hope so. I mean, it's really important for food safety regulators to be on top of these things. It's about protecting public health. you know?
Yeah, and they're recommending legal action against the owner and the workers. But we'll have to wait and see what the lab results show and what comes out in the formal report.
Definitely worth keeping an eye on.
So switching gears completely, now we're seeing some pretty worrying reports about those clashes in Nagpur between Hindus and Muslims.
Yeah, that's really concerning.
Yeah, it seems like the whole thing was sparked by protests
Yeah.
demanding that Aurangzeb's tomb be demolished, which,
Right?
brings up all these really sensitive issues about historical figures and religious sites in India.
And Aurangzeb is such a controversial figure.
Right.
There are so many different perspectives on his legacy. And it seems like those tensions have really been amplified in the current political climate.
And it's scary how quickly things escalated.
Yeah.
I mean, there are reports of damage to property injuries to both police and civilians,
Oh, wow.
and a lot of arrests.
That's really...
Bad. And you know what's really worrying is that rumors about religious content being burned played a part in making things worse.
Mhm.
It just shows how easily things can get out of control when misinformation spreads.
That's so true. And with Aurangzeb specifically,
Yeah.
I mean, he's seen as a significant historical figure by some, but others focus on the parts of his reign that were discriminatory, towards certain groups.
Right.
And you can't ignore the claims from rights groups about an increase in attacks on minorities
Yeah,
under the current government, although the BJP disputes those claims.
right, of course. And the fact that the tomb is in Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, which has a history of its own when it comes to communal tensions,
Right.
just adds another layer of complexity to the whole situation.
Yeah, it's a really complicated issue.
And it's hard to ignore that this is all happening at the same time as the release of that new Bollywood movie that's been getting criticized for stirring up division between Hindus and Muslims.
You're right about that. It does feel like everything's connected and points to some deeper social problems.
Yeah, it's a real reminder that those religious and social fault lines are still there in India.
Yeah, and how easily things can flare up,
Right.
especially when you're dealing with history and religious identity.
For sure. Okay, so on a totally different note, it looks like India's taken some big steps to boost its naval power.
Oh, yeah. What's going on?
We're buying 26 of those French Rafale M fighter jets.
Wow, that's a huge deal.
It is. It's a 7.97 billion euro purchase. We're replacing those old Russian MiG-29Ks with them.
So that's a serious upgrade for the Indian Navy.
Yeah, it shows that we're really serious about modernizing our armed forces and beefing up our presence at sea.
And it's a big boost to the strategic partnership between India and France.
Absolutely. I was reading that France has actually overtaken Russia as the world's second biggest arms exporter now,
Wow.
according to CPI, that is. It's a big change in the global arms trade.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think it reflects the changing relationships between countries, as the global landscape shifts.
Right. And
Hmm.
for India choosing the Rafale M, it fits in with our focus on the Indo-Pacific.
Uh-huh.
We need to strengthen our defenses with all the stuff happening in that region.
You need to be ready for anything these days.
Yeah, and those Rafale Ms are packed with advanced technology. They're going to give our Navy a serious edge.
They're going to boost our operational readiness for sure.
Yeah.
And really strengthen maritime security in a really strategically important area.
It's not just about having the latest equipment, though.
What do you mean?
It's a statement,
It is,
yeah, showing the world that India is ready and willing to defend its interests.
Absolutely. It shows how India's role in the Indo-Pacific is evolving.
Yeah, we're not just sitting on the sidelines anymore. All right, so back on the home front, we've got the usual back and forth between the BJP and Congress.
What are they going at it about this time?
National pride this time.
Mm.
And specifically about the Mahakumbh event.
Ah, I saw that. So you've got the BJP praising the event,
Yeah.
talking about how many people attended.
Right. BJP MP Bansuri Swaraj was really defending Prime Minister Modi's comments about it,
Right.
saying it was a symbol of cultural unity and all that. And then, of course,
Yeah.
Rahul Gandhi comes in and expresses disappointment,
Yeah.
talking about the stampede victims from a previous event
Yeah.
and saying the government's ignoring things like unemployment.
Right, it's like two totally different ways of looking at the same thing.
Exactly. And then you've got Priyanka Gandhi Vadra calling for more inclusive dialogue in Parliament.
Of course.
It's like they're speaking different languages.
It highlights the deep divide between the two parties, The BJP focusing on these big achievements and cultural unity, while the Congress is more concerned with social justice issues.
Yeah, and it's a debate that just keeps coming up over and over.
Yeah, it's a constant theme in Indian politics.
Okay, so another big political issue right now is the whole debate about voter lists. The Congress Party is saying that the Election Commission of India has admitted that there are problems.
Really?
Yes, specifically about the concerns that Rahul Gandhi raised
Hmm.
about irregularities and a sudden jump in voter registrations in Maharashtra.
Hmm. Interesting.
It's all about finding the right balance,
Hmm.
between making sure that the voter list is accurate and fair, which is crucial for any democracy, but also making sure that everyone who is eligible to vote can actually vote.
Yeah. You don't want people to be disenfranchised.
Exactly. And the Congress says they support using Aadhaar for deduplication, but they're worried about people's rights and privacy being violated.
That's a valid concern for sure.
And the ECI has been putting out statements clarifying that linking voter ID with Aadhaar is all above board,
Hmm.
according to the Constitution and the Representation of the People Act.
Hmm.
They say it's mainly for verifying identity, not proving citizenship, and that it won't stop anyone from voting. Plus, they're going to have these technical talks with UID Day to work out the details.
So they're trying to address the concerns.
Yeah, but the Congress is still pushing for the ECI to involve everyone in the process and make sure there are strong safeguards in place.
Which is probably a good idea. I mean, transparency is key in these sorts of situations.
Definitely. So let's switch gears again and talk about something a bit more exciting. Amazon is apparently thinking about spinning off its India business and listing it on the Indian stock exchanges.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, it's big news. Apparently, they're doing it to comply with those new data localization rules, and so they can have more control over their inventory.
Makes sense, I guess.
I heard they're already talking to a bunch of investment banks, including JP Morgan.
Wow, so they're serious about this.
Yeah, it shows how important the Indian market is to them.
Right.
It's one of their biggest and most promising markets globally.
And listing locally would let them tap into all that Indian investment money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, it would help them adapt to the rules and regulations here, which seem to favor homegrown businesses more and more these days.
It's a smart move. And an IPO like that would be huge for the Indian stock market.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Okay, so on to the world of sports, specifically the IPL. It looks like KL Rahul is switching teams.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Lucknow Super Giants let him go, and now he's been picked up by Delhi Capitals in the 2025 mega auction.
Interesting. And how much did they shell out for him?
A cool Euro 14 crore.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
And get this, they're planning to move him from opener to the middle order.
That's a big change for him. I wonder why they're doing that.
They're trying to shake up their batting lineup,
Yeah.
address some scoring issues. It sounds like their top order will be Abhishek Porel, Faf du Plessis, and Jake Fraser-McGurk, now that Harry Brook is gone.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And he won't be captaining DC, which breaks his leadership streak going back to 2019.
So it's a whole new chapter for him.
It is. And, he did play in the middle order back in 2016 with RCB before he became a regular opener.
Oh, right. I'd forgotten about that.
So it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts back to that role.
Yeah, this could be a make or break season for him.
For sure. So on the political front, again, it seems like Shashi Tharoor has changed his tune a bit about India's stance on the Russia-Ukraine war.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, he's pretty critical of our neutral position at first,
Right.
talking about UN violations and Ukraine's sovereignty.
Yeah, he was pretty vocal about it.
But now he's saying he was wrong.
Wow, that's a pretty big admission.
It is. He was at the Rasina dialogue, and he basically said that he's come to realize that India is in a unique position
Uh-huh.
to engage with both sides,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that this neutrality has actually made India more credible as a potential peacemaker.
Interesting. So he's basically saying that India can use its non-aligned status to try and broker peace.
Yeah, and he even praised the government's diplomacy. You know how Prime Minister Modi has been talking to both Zelensky and Putin?
Mm-hmm.
And he suggested that India might even send peacekeepers at some point.
That would be a big step.
It would.
But, he did make it clear that as an opposition member, he's not officially speaking for the government.
Of course, right. But it's still significant that he's come out and said this.
Yeah, it shows how India's role in global diplomacy is evolving.
Okay, so some good news on the economic front. India's medical tourism industry is booming.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, they're saying it could be worth $18 billion by 2027.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and they're predicting a compound annual growth rate of 19%.
So it's really taking off.
It is. And it's no
Okay.
surprise, really. India offers really high-quality healthcare, but at a fraction of the cost compared to a lot of developed countries.
Yeah, that's a big draw for people.
And it's not just about the money.
What else is there?
India also has a rich culture,
Oh, yeah.
So people can come here for treatment and have a whole experience.
A medical vacation.
Yeah, exactly. And, they say the market was already worth $7 billion back in 2022.
Wow, so it's more than doubled in just a few years.
Almost. And between 2015 and 2019, the number of foreign medical tourists was growing at a crazy rate, like 31% per year.
That's huge.
Yeah, of course, it took a hit in 2020 because of the COVID,
Right.
but it bounced back in a big way in 2023.
That's good to hear. So things are back on track.
Yeah, they really are. It's clear that India has the potential to be a global leader in healthcare.
I'm really glad to hear that.
So there's been an interesting development in Telangana.
What's that?
They've put in place 42% reservations for other backward classes.
Really? That's pretty significant.
It is, and it's after they conducted a caste census.
Oh, wow. So they're really taking concrete steps to address social inequalities.
Yeah, exactly. And, the chief minister said that the OBC population is actually 56.36%.
So these reservations are about making sure they have proportional representation.
Right, and you've got Congress MP Kiran Kumar Chamla praising the move, and Rahul Gandhi saying it's a big step towards equality.
And the Congress wants to do a nationwide caste census.
Exactly. It's a hot topic for sure.
Definitely. And in Telangana, they formed an expert group to look at all the data from the caste survey.
So it's not just a political move. They're really trying to get a clear picture of the situation.
Yeah, they're approaching it in a systematic way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's being hailed as a historic effort to make things more inclusive and equitable, which is, a good thing.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, not all the economic news is positive, though. India's merchandise exports took a pretty big dip in February.
Oh, no. How bad are we talking?
They fell by 10.9%.
Wow, that's pretty steep.
It's the biggest drop in 20 months.
Ouch.
And imports went down, too, by 16.3%.
So it's not just that we're selling less abroad.
Right.
We're also buying less from other countries.
Exactly. The good news, I guess, is that the trade deficit has shrunk to its lowest point in 3.5 years. But that's mostly because imports have gone down so much, not because exports have picked up.
So it's not really a good sign overall.
Not really. The main reason for this drop seems to be that crude oil imports have gone down by almost 30%, and gold imports have plummeted by a whopping 62%.
Wow. So what's driving that?
It's a combination of things lower global oil prices,
Makes sense.
a lot of uncertainty in the global economy, and those U.S. trade restrictions.
Yeah, it's a tough time for exporters right now.
It is.
Yeah.
And things aren't looking much better for the future either. With those reciprocal tariffs that the U.S. is planning to put in place in April, and American importers getting cold feet.
Oh, no.
It's going to be a real challenge for Indian exporters to stay competitive.
It's going to be a tough year.
For sure. So the Competition Commission of India, or the CCI, has been busy.
What have they been up to?
They conducted raids on some of the big players in advertising.
Really?
Yeah, places like Group M Publicis, Dentsu Interpublic Group. And they also raided a broadcasters industry group.
Wow, that's a bold move. What are they investigating?
It's all about allegations of price collusion.
Oh, so they're saying these companies are working together to fix prices.
Yeah, basically. And to manipulate discounts, which, if it's true, violates antitrust laws.
So they could be in big trouble.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
And this is all happening against the backdrop of a lot of changes in the advertising world in India, with that Disney-Reliance merger and Omnicom buying Interpublic Group.
Right, so the whole landscape is shifting.
Yeah, and remember, India is the 8th largest advertising market in the world.
Wow!
Yeah, $18.5 billion in revenue last year, with digital making up 60% of that.
So it's a big deal.
It is.
Yeah.
And if these companies are found guilty, they could be fined up to 3 times their profits or 10% of their turnover.
Ouch. So this is a serious investigation.
Yeah, they're not messing around. It shows that the CCI is really keeping a close eye on how businesses are operating, especially with the rise of all these big digital platforms.
It's good to know someone's watching out for consumers.
Absolutely. Okay, so lastly, we have more tension between India and Pakistan.
Oh boy, what's happened now?
Well, Prime Minister Modi gave an interview where he talked about Pakistan, and Pakistan didn't like it. They called his comments misleading and one-sided.
What did he say?
Well, he talked about the partition in 1947,
Okay.
and he basically accused Pakistan of choosing a path of hostility and exporting terrorism. He even brought up 9/11.
Wow, so he didn't hold back.
No, he didn't. So, of course, the Pakistani Foreign Office fired back, saying that the Kashmir issue is still unresolved and accusing India of leaving things out of the historical narrative.
All right.
And the MEA came back swinging,
Of course.
saying that it's Pakistan's actions that are preventing peace.
It's the same old story, isn't it?
Yeah, it's frustrating. It just shows how deep the mistrust runs between the two countries.
It's like they're stuck in a loop.
Yeah, and it's hard to see a way out anytime soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one more thing. The Wikimedia Foundation is taking an Indian court to task.
Really? What for?
They're challenging an order that told them to take down a Wikipedia page,
A whole
a
page.
whole page. And it's about their legal fight with ANI, the news agency.
So what's the problem?
Wikimedia says the order violates their freedom of speech
Uh-huh.
and their right to access information.
That's a big deal.
It is. And they're saying that if platforms like Wikipedia are forced to censor information about legal cases,
Right.
it'll have a chilling effect on how information is shared online.
Makes sense. People will be afraid to write about anything controversial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the whole thing started because ANI sued Wikimedia for defamation.
Defamation.
Yeah, because Wikipedia described ANI as a propaganda tool.
Ouch.
I know, right?
So ANI wants to control how they're portrayed online.
Yeah, and ANI claims that edits reflecting their side of the story were removed from the page.
Hmm.
So the Delhi High Court said that the page had to be taken down because it was interfering with the case.
Wow.
But Wikimedia appealed that decision to the Supreme Court, saying they have the right to host information about court cases.
And what did the Supreme Court say?
Well, they've acknowledged that this is a big issue for media freedom, and they've asked ANI to respond.
So it's going to the Supreme Court.
It is. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Yeah, other platforms like Twitter have faced similar challenges.
Yeah, it's a growing trend.
It is. And the next hearing is on April 4th. It's going to be a really important case for digital rights in India.
Definitely one to watch.
All right, so last but not least, the Life Insurance Corporation of India, or LIC, might be getting into the health insurance game.
That's interesting. So they're branching out.
Yeah, if they're thinking about buying a stake in a health insurance company, they should be making a decision by the end of the month.
So are they going to become a major player in health insurance?
Well, the CEO, Siddhartha Mohanty, said they're in talks, but nothing's finalized yet,
Okay.
and they're not looking for a majority stake.
Yeah.
But, right now they're all about life insurance, pension plans,
Yeah.
investment-linked products.
Right.
They don't do health insurance.
But it's a growing market.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of competition out there from private companies like Star Health and Aditya Birla Health.
So they're going to have to fight for market share.
Yeah. But LIC is a big name.
Gee.
They have a lot of reach. So this could really change the health insurance landscape in India.
Definitely. And separately, they're also talking to the RBI about issuing those really long-term bonds, 50-year or even 100-year bonds.
Wow.
Yeah, it seems like they're really thinking long-term about their growth strategy.
Yeah, they're not just sitting still.
Good for them.
So that was a lot. We went through a ton of headlines today, everything from international power plays and defense deals to stuff happening right here in our own backyard. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've covered so much ground, from global politics and economics to local social issues and business developments. It really gives you a sense of how much is happening in India right now.
It's a lot to take in. So if you had to pick one theme that connects all these different stories, what would it be?
That's a tough one. But I guess if I had to choose, I'd say it's about India finding its place in a world that's changing really fast.
That's a good way to put it.
We're dealing with economic uncertainty, global power shifts, social tensions, technological advancements. It's a lot to juggle.
It is. And it's not always easy to find the right balance, between progress and tradition, between national interests and global responsibilities.
Definitely. It's a constant balancing act.
And that's what makes it all so fascinating, right?
It certainly does.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the news. If any of these stories really caught your attention, we encourage you to go and learn more about them. There's always more to discover. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.